So yes, settle onto your back. And what we're going to do to start with is just see how our breathing feels. So maybe without doing any of those big sighing breaths. If you're really desperate to do some big sighing breaths, do. But otherwise, just start by settling onto your back and maybe bringing your hands onto the front of your body, if that helps you to feel your breath within you. So I think last Monday, we were thinking about different ways we could focus on our breathing in yoga. And I've been thinking about breathing in yoga a lot during the last sort of week or so. And where I've come to is just this sense that actually when we move, then we can settle and feel our breath within us. So we haven't moved much yet. So we might, if this first little bit of sensing our breath, it might not be as easy as it will, hopefully will be once we've moved a bit more. So I think that means we should start with some movements. So why don't you then start to let your head roll on the floor, a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. So when we're moving today, we can have this awareness of our breath, but we're not trying to do anything to it. We're just allowing our breath to flow in and out as it wants to. And at the moment, we're letting our head roll to the right and to the left, just sort of easing your head from side to side, seeing how that feels. And from rolling your head to the right and to the left, let me just spotlight myself, which I haven't done. Then find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor. And if your legs are long, I'd like you now to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. Come to a little bit of tilting your knees to the right and to the left. So this familiar movement that we often start with. And again, Linda was saying she had her back doing some gardening. So if you've got any sort of particular aches and pains, just noticing how your body feels as you let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And make sure the movement stays comfortable for you. You're not pushing anything right now. And just maybe once or twice more, and feel how the weight shifts side to side across the back of your pelvis. So the weight shifts to the right and to the left. And then settle in the center, stop tilting your knees. And just for a moment, feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, feel the back of your pelvis on the floor. And then what I'd like you to do is start to tilt your pelvis on the floor. So you're tipping your pelvis a little bit towards your head, letting your lower back flatten out. And you're tipping your pelvis away from your head so that your lower back arches off the floor a little bit. And again, Linda, particularly, you just sort of see how this feels. And you might find that one of these movements is okay and the other one isn't, or it might have to be very small. So these tilting movements from the pelvis tips towards our face, the sort of bottom of the pelvis comes off the ground. You're not going as far as bridge pose yet. And then you're tipping your pelvis away from your face and your lower back comes away from the ground. It arches a little bit. And what I would like you to do actually, when you've done this once or twice more, is then to take it into bridge pose, but keep it very easy. And I'd just like you to roll up and down 3 times. So you're not really thinking about staying there, thinking more about the movement of letting the pelvis tilt off the floor. And then particularly that movement where we're placing our vertebrae back onto the ground. But I think there's the sort of picking up of the vertebrae and the placing down of the vertebrae. And noticing, what you discover. How does your body feel when you do this movement? Where do you easily move to in bridge pose? So how many of your vertebrae, I'm not expecting you to count them, but how much of your spine picks up off the floor? And then when you place your spine back down on the floor, how easy is it to do this vertebrae by vertebrae? And yes, 3 times in total. And just letting your breath flow in and out as you do this. Keeping it comfortable, keeping it easy. When you've done 3 bridge poses, you're going to fold your knees into your chest and hold around your knees. So really just that I know that you've finished. And you can do a little bit of rocking there if you like, from side to side, or you can have a couple of quiet breaths in the center. And if you like, you could also take your legs up towards the ceiling, give them a shake out. You can also add your arms in, whatever feels nice at this point. Sharon, I was just going to say, if I forget to say later, Chili is so cute. This is Chili, Sharon's dog. So it's been very nice to get some of the animals today. And what you're going to do then is fold your knees back into your chest, and you're going to rock over onto one side. And I would like you to settle on your side. You could pop a cushion under the side of your head if that's more comfortable, or you could use your arm to make a little pillow for the side of your head. So you want to lie on your side with your knees folded in towards your chest, roughly at a right angle. That's it. You just want to be comfortable on your side and let your arms be relaxed in front of you. The movement I'd like you to do here is the one where we just try and lift the bottom ribs off the floor and make a little sort of arch under the side of ourselves, and then we place them back down again. So this is all you're going to do here, is a few times, can you pick your bottom ribs off the floor and can you place them back down again? So when you pick your bottom ribs off the floor, it's like you're making a little tunnel that I always think like a mouse could slide under, but obviously no, if you don't like mice. Good. So 2 or 3 more times, see if you can do this little movement where we lift our bottom ribs off the floor, our bottom shoulder and our pelvis stay in contact with the floor. It takes us into a little side bending movement. And then I'd just like you to settle and have a couple of breaths on your side and see, how does it feel to be on your side breathing? We've moved a little bit now. How easy does it feel to immerse yourself in the sensations of your breath? And don't worry if it doesn't feel easy, because we've got lots more movement to do. And then in your own time, you're going to roll all the way over onto your other side and just settle on your other side in the same way. So it could be a cushion under the side of your head. It could be your arm, you're bending your elbow to make a little pillow for your head, or you could have your arm long on the floor, whatever feels comfortable. And settle on your side. You might have a breath or two to settle there. And then again, you're going to do that little movement where you explore picking your bottom ribs up off the floor and placing them down again. So you imagine you're making this sort of little tunnel under the side of your body that a very small creature could go under, or you could even slide your own hand under. So if you're wondering whether you are lifting your ribs, you could just try sliding one of your hands under. Yes. It would be your top hand. I don't think your bottom hand would slide under, but your top hand might be able to slide under and see, are you lifting your ribs up to create this little bit of space under the side of your body? And just do that a couple more times. And then let that go. And again, come back to your breathing, just on the here for a couple of cycles of breath. How does it feel to be on this side, feeling your breath come in, feeling your breath leave you? And from this side, we're going to then roll onto our bellies. So disturbing yourself as little as possible, let yourself roll onto your belly. And that's it. And then just settle however's comfortable. So you don't have to. I always tend to, I think I usually say, have one hand on top of the other and one cheek resting on my hands. But you know, if you prefer to have your arms down by your sides, that's fine. Give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle once you've arrived on your front. That's it. Good. If we think about this sort of wiggling movement, it's almost a bit like a sort of small version of the tail wagging we do on hands and knees. And that's it. It just does help to release our lower back. That's it. That's nice. And then we can move a little bit more. We can bend our knees. We can take the soles of our feet towards the ceiling. And we can tilt our feet to the right and to the left. That's nice. Obviously, don't do this if it doesn't feel good on your lower back. Or try taking your feet a bit lower if your lower back's not happy. And if it's still not happy, then just bring your legs back onto the ground. If you quite like doing this one, do it a few more times. Let the feet tilt to the right and to the left. And if we're doing this movement, it's about just trying to release tension around the pelvis. So as the feet tilt, obviously the lower legs move with them, the upper legs move with them. We might feel the pelvis shifting its weight from side to side a little bit. And then let your legs come down onto the floor. And let's just slide the hands forwards a bit. So you bring your forehead onto the floor and your arms are either side of your head, just sort of in a big circle. And you're going to see a few times, I think maybe just 3 times, just you exhale, sinking down into your elbows and forearms. See how it feels to lift your head away from the floor. See if you can feel the muscles in your upper back involved in this movement. Come back down, perhaps, as you breathe in. It might be, so do this 3 times, and it might be the 3rd time if you feel like staying for perhaps a cycle of breath. So you could stay supporting your head for an in breath and an out breath. See how it feels. And so sometimes it's when we stay with our head lifted that then we maybe feel the muscles in the upper back working a little bit more. Good. Lovely. And so when you've done this 3 times and you've stayed for a couple of breaths, then you're going to just see if you can settle on your belly for a moment and have a couple of cycles of breath doing nothing. Come back to wiggling your pelvis if that's helpful. And if you've really had enough on your belly, where we're going to from here is child pose. So you could come on into child. Yes, that's it. So maybe whenever you're ready, come on into child or kneeling. And again, I'd just like you to have a couple of quiet breaths and see how it feels to, see how it feels to bring your attention to your breathing now. Where we've done some movement in 9. So I haven't uncovered my screen. And then we're going to come up into standing and we're going to start moving more. So just come into standing in your own way. And we're just going to do a couple of sort of, I suppose, well, I always think loosening up things, and then we're going to work with a bit of sequence. So the first thing we're going to do is just this swinging our arms, slapping our arms onto our body. Looking a bit, it's like I'm disappearing into the depths of darkness here, but hopefully the Zoom will brighten up in a minute. Good, so swinging your arms, slapping them onto your body. Feeling the whole of yourself in movement. And also, once we come into standing, we might be aware of different sorts of, different sorts of tension, different aches or pains. Hopefully nothing too terrible. Good, couple more times. So this is our sort of twisty movements. We're going to come on into a side lengthening movement. This is one we sometimes take into a balance, and we will do later on. So what you're going to do is start to reach up into one arm. I've chosen my right arm, it doesn't matter. As you're reaching up into that arm, start to shift your weight into the same leg. Make sure the other arm is really heavy and floppy, so I'm giving it away. And you can also let the other heel, this is not the raised arm side, the other heel come off the ground, so this side. And then release. We're going to do this 3 times on each side. So come back to the same side again, reach up through the arm, start to shift your weight onto the leg, let the other arm be heavy and floppy, and then let the heel come up. So this is the non-raised arm side, heel comes up, good. And then release your arm. And one last time. So reaching up through that same arm again, shifting your weight into that leg, letting the other arm be heavy and floppy, letting the other heel come away from the floor. So we're really long through one side of the body, and then release that arm. And then the same thing on the other side. So reach up through the other arm, shifting your weight into this other leg. Let the other arm be heavy and floppy, so the one we were just lifting. Let the heel come off the ground, and then release. So sometimes it cannot, we don't always like to take our arms up for too long. So reaching up through your arm, shifting your weight into that reaching arm leg. Let the other arm be heavy and floppy. Let the heel come up. And then we'll do it one last time. So one last time, reaching up, shifting your weight into the other leg. That's it. Let your arm be heavy and floppy. Let your heel come up. Good. And then let's let that go. And then let's just do a forward bend here. And I quite like you, first of all, to come forwards. And Linda, you may need to do this for all of your forward bends. First of all, come forwards and rest your elbows on your thighs with your knees a bit bent. And just see how you feel being here. If it all feels, easy, well and good, you can carry on releasing your arms to the ground. If it feels that maybe it's better for you to stay, sometimes I need to stay in this place with my elbows on my thighs while my lower back is releasing a bit. So wherever you are in your forward bend, have a couple more breaths. Letting your head go, feeling rooted down through your heels, the soles of your feet. And then we can roll up as we exhale. Linda, maybe walking your hands up the fronts of your thighs, back up into standing. And we're going to come to the backs of our mats. So we're going to be doing a sequence that's going to take us down onto the floor, doing some different things on the floor, back up into standing, just to get us moving. So bring your hands into prayer pose at the back of your mat. And so Linda, again, when we come to a forward bend, you will probably want to bring your elbows to your thighs. So take a moment here to feel the contact of your feet on the ground, to feel the contact of your palms together at your chest. Let a breath come in, and as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Feel long and tall, drop your shoulders away from your ears and then rounding forwards. At this point, you can bring your elbows to your thighs or release your arms all the way down to the ground. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then we'll walk our hands forwards into dog pose. And you'll have just maybe a couple of cycles of breath in dog, but anything you want to do in terms of sort of bending your knees, bending one knee, bending the other knee. And from dog pose, we'll come down onto hands and knees and settle in hands and knees. So there's going to be plenty more dog pose. Don't worry if you think you're going to miss out. So sort of normal hands and knees position here, hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips, and come into some cat movements. So how does it feel to round our back to the ceiling, to dip our spine down to the floor? So these are the movements that can be, if we've sort of pulled our back in some way, these are the movements that can sometimes feel constrained, going in either direction, or if we're just feeling a bit creaky on a Monday morning. So see how it feels to round your back, to dip your spine, just letting your breath flow through you as it wants to. You could also do a little bit of your tail wagging, so you could pause with your spine in sort of a fairly neutral place, see how it feels to imagine you have a tail and to wag your tail from side to side. And we're then going to take the weight off our hands for a moment by coming into child. And so maybe round your back, come into a rounded cat. Rock your hips back over your heels. Come into child pose for a breath or two. Remember, you can always take your knees wider apart if that's more comfortable for you in child. See how it feels to rest your forehead down onto the ground, your elbows on the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Feel the back of the body lengthening. And then in child pose, stretch your arms out so your elbows come off the floor and plant your hands down. And if you're in knee, that's it. So you then come up onto hands and knees, and you're in this sort of long hands and knees position. Yes, so your hands are a bit further forwards than your shoulders. And I just want you to sort of start the beginnings of this rocking forwards. So we're thinking about rocking forwards towards face up dog, but we're probably not going all the way, being too gung-ho about it, because we're going to do a bit of this. So I'd like you to do this maybe 3 times, rocking forwards and back. 3 or 4 times. Just how does it feel? If it feels very easy, then you might find yourself in face up dog. Good. And then you're going to rock all the way back into kneeling, either sitting down or up, and give your hands a shake out and bring the backs of your hands together. Okay. And then we're going to go through dog pose and a forward bend back into standing. So hands back on the floor. So I always find sort of this dog pose from the ground a bit more satisfying than from a forward bend. So see how yours feels. Tuck your toes under. Exhale, rock your hips back over your heels, pick your knees up off the ground. Arrive in your dog pose. Have maybe 2 or 3 breaths here. Bending your knees as much as you like. Resting down through your arms, seeing how your dog pose feels today. Allowing your body little by little to start to ease out some of those sort of creaky, dusty corners. And from dog, we'll walk our hands in towards our feet, into a forward bend. So arrive in your forward bend. If you need to walk your hands up the front of your legs, do that. If it's okay for you to touch the backs of your hands together and roll up into standing, taking your arms straight up towards the ceiling, you can do, and then out in a big circle, all the way back into prayer pose. So we're going to be going down to the floor again, doing a few different things down there. So just take a moment to settle yourselves, letting your breath come in, exhaling, taking your arms down and then up, long and tall, and then as you exhale, sort of gathering your elbows in, rolling down into a forward bend. Maybe a cycle of breath in your forward bend, and then once again walking forwards into dog pose. And we won't stay long in this dog, we'll just use it as a transition to take us down onto hands and knees. This time on hands and knees, we're going to explore see how our fox pose feels today. So Linda, if this aggravates your lower back at all, then don't, just take your leg onto the floor rather than lift it, yeah? So opposite arm and leg, breathing ourselves long from our fingertips to our heel. You can point your toes rather than your heel, or you can sort of alternate, pointing heels, pointing toes. This is what I always say. I always say, oh, this is really easy, and then I do it and find myself finding it actually quite hard work. So have a few breaths, one pair of opposite limbs, and then in your own time you can change, you can swap over, so other leg and arm. And again, we're looking for this sense of being long from the fingertips to the back heel or toes, and steady. This is the perhaps slightly more elusive part, the steady part. Good. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. When you come down, perhaps sit back over your heels or come into up knee for a moment and shake your hands out, because I want us to come on into plank pose now. So it's probably good to give the hands and wrists a little shake out. And then we'll see how it feels to come on into plank. So hands back on the floor, lengthening one leg back, adding the other leg in. And we'll stay in plank for a few breaths, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 4 breaths. Again, our breathing is rather constrained here, particularly if we're staying in our lovely sort of straight line of plank. Yes, Linda, don't overdo it. Good. And whenever you've had enough plank pose, if you're sort of carrying on with your plank marathon, you can stay there. Whenever you've had enough, knees onto the floor, untuck your toes, fold back into child pose or kneeling if you prefer. Settling down. And maybe just taking a quiet moment to see how it feels to come back to feeling your breath, bringing your awareness to your breathing. So just be somewhere where you're comfortable, you can feel the breath moving through you. And then again, from child pose, you're going to be reaching your arms forwards, your hands forwards on the floor, so your elbows come off the ground. And then coming up into this long hands and knees position. So it could be that you just explore again a little bit of rocking forwards to face up dog. You could do your sort of tail wagging movements towards face up dog if you wanted to. So I'm just giving that really as an option, depending on what you're feeling you would like to do. And again, you don't have to go all the way to face up dog. Sometimes if we do those sort of tail wagging movements, we can surprise ourselves. Maybe just do it, I don't know, 3 times. Yeah. How do we feel? Not pushing anything. And Linda, yes, Linda, very much you could be focusing on tail wagging without going too far forwards or back. So when you've done that perhaps 3 times, again, sit back over your heels, either in down or up, kneeling, and give your hands a shake out. And we'll go back into dog pose, back through a forward bend into standing. Again, I would say, this is my personal preference. This, again, maybe have a few breaths in this dog. This dog we do from the ground, where we can really plant our hands down, tuck our toes under, maybe arrive in a more sort of settled, comfortable dog. But that might not be your experience. You might like the dogs from forward bend. Yeah, can you have a few breaths in dog? And feel that maybe you're starting to ease into those creaky places, those dusty corners. Release tension to lengthen out. So from dog, we'll be walking our hands into a forward bend. And from our forward bend, we'll be rolling up into standing, touching the backs of your hands together unless you need to walk your hands up the fronts. Up into standing, so you're long and tall, and then exhaling. Good, very nice. Little shake out if you like. We're going to do one more time going down to the ground, doing some different things down there. So hands in prayer pose in front of you, letting the breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up, long and tall. Drop your shoulders away from your ears and then curling, rounding down into your forward bend. Maybe having a breath here and then on. I say through dog pose. If you like, if you think actually I prefer coming into dog pose from a forward bend, I rather like this, then stay there for an extra breath or so. If you're not so keen, I think I always feel there's more weight in my arms in that dog pose, which may be why I like it less. And then when you come down onto hands and knees, we're going to be doing this twist, which quite a lot on Mondays, where we step one foot forwards. This one, we come up into this position. So I probably don't need to keep saying it to you. Make sure you've got your little sideways distance. And so your front knee is under your front knee is over your front heel. Your back knee is under your pelvis. We're just trying to keep the pelvis fairly sort of steady and centered. And then we're turning towards our front leg. So if your back knee isn't happy, then do put a folded blanket under it, because sometimes the back knee can be a bit grumbly. Good. This arm, we're giving away the back arm, or the hand is on the back of the pelvis. We're trying to let the shoulders drop. We're feeling wide in the front of the chest. Good. Very nice. And then from here, lovely, we will untwist, and you're going to fold over your front leg, and we're going to move on into lunge. So fold over your front leg, tuck your back toes under, and see if you can walk, sort of step your back leg back. So a little bit more. That's it. And then just, yeah, settling in your lunge. And Linda, just obviously don't push it. Having a few breaths here. So we're coming to that lovely feeling we have in lunge of opening out through the front of the back leg thigh. We can use a big exhalation if that helps. And we'll ease out of lunge. So we'll do that by untucking the back foot and then easing, looking back behind us. And we're going to do the other side now for that twist. So I'm just going to turn around so I don't end up turning away from you. So we're going to step the other foot forwards. And again, same thing. You've got your front knee over your front heel, your back knee under your pelvis. And we're trying to have that little bit of sideways distance so that we don't feel too wobbly, so that we feel stable. And then we're turning towards the front leg. Trying to give away the back arm. The front hand can rest on that front leg, thigh. Back arm heavy and relaxed, maybe rests on the back of the pelvis or just hangs. Back shoulder dropping, feeling wide across the front of the chest as we let the breath come in and leave us. So in this twist, what we're maybe hoping to feel is that we're moving in some of that tightness between our shoulder blades and our upper back. And we're also feeling perhaps a little bit more expansive through the front of the chest than we do sometimes. Good. And then lovely. And then from here, you can untwist. You can fold over your front leg. You can then start to tuck your toes under and start to sort of step your back knee back. As far as you want to go into your lunge. Obviously, you're trying to keep your front knee over your front heel. You don't want that knee to go further back. It could be further forwards, but not further back. And then have a few breaths in your lunge. Giving the weight of your pelvis down to the ground. Yes, giving Atticus a stroke, Rosie, very important there. And I'm sorry, I hope it's not too clunky there. I think Gemma's emptying the dishwasher. I don't want to stop her. But from your lunge, you can untuck your back toes and you can ease back, looking behind you. And bringing yourself out of your lunge, we're going to come back to our face up dog. So we want to have this long hands and knees position. I was thinking it might be quite nice to do our sort of cat movements into face up dog now. So long hands and knees, tucking your toes under, rounding your back to the ceiling, staying rounded to rock your hips back over your heels, having a breath when you've walked back, an inhalation, and then travel forwards as you exhale. Keep looking back behind you, let your pelvis come forwards until your shoulders are over your wrists. I realised I wasn't quite long enough in my hands and knees, untuck the toes. Good, and then sort of reverse the movement. So rocking back, at a certain point you tuck your toes under, you look back behind you, let the breath come in, travel forwards with your out breath, looking back behind you until your shoulders are over your wrists. So again, if you feel that you weren't quite long enough or you were too long, you make these adjustments. We do it one more time. So reversing the movement, tucking the toes under, all the way back. Let the breath come in. And then traveling forwards. Looking back, watching your pelvis travel forwards. Till we end up very nice in our face-up dog. It feels okay. You can have a cycle of breath here. Beautiful, shoulders down away from the ears, amazing. And then untuck your toes all the way back into child pose. And yes, settling with your breath for a couple of cycles of breath. So in a moment, we're going to be coming back up into standing through dog pose. And if you wanted to in this dog pose, you could do some of your one-legged dogs, depending how your dog pose is coming on and feeling right now. So you can come onto hands and knees, big handprints on the floor, particularly if you're going to do one-legged dog poses, you want some big handprints. And then tucking your toes under, rocking your hips back, coming into dog pose, and maybe giving yourself a breath or two in dog and just seeing how your dog pose feels. Some of you I can see look keen to be doing your one-leg dogs, so by all means. And you know all the different variations with your legs straight, with your pelvis level, yes, bending that top leg. And again, thinking about them as sort of movement, not some fixed place we're trying to stay, because we could get quite tense if we do that. Obviously on both sides. And then, yes, Linda, probably today is not the day for those. And then a forward dog pose into your forward bend. Touching the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing. Good. So we'll arrive up in standing, very nice. And have a little shake out when we've arrived in standing. So we're going to come into a couple of balances, standing balances, and we're going to return to what we were doing earlier, this reaching up through one arm, which will take us into a standing balance. And yeah, I think just choose one arm to reach up with. So you've chosen one arm to reach up through. You're going to be shifting your weight onto that leg. And then you're going to be catching the top of the other foot. Or your trouser leg, yeah? To the top or trouser, foot or trouser leg. And then the raised arm can come down onto your chest. And let yourself settle here for a moment. And then from here, you're going to go on, reaching your foot back behind you and your arm forwards. And just see if you can find these sort of expansive movements in this, which can feel really nice. And it's fine if you have a bit of a wobble and you need to come back up again. So this reaching forwards with your hand, backwards behind you with your foot. It's fine to let your pelvis tilt off to the side. Just, yeah, where, very nice. Where do you want to go with this today? And it's fun, yeah. So it might be that you have a little wobble. It might be you want to try a second time on the same side. You don't have to go back through the whole movement. You might just come to hand on your breastbone. Where else could I go if I was to reach my arm forwards and my leg back behind me? Could I go to a place where I could have a breath, or even 2 cycles of breath? Yeah, very nice, lovely. Good. And then we'll try the same thing on the other side. So it's interesting, isn't it? I sort of never know whether it's helpful not to know where you're going or helpful to know where you're going. So I think there's probably benefits in both. So raising the other arm, shifting your weight onto the other leg, starting to peel the foot off the floor that you just stood on, catching the top of your foot or your trouser leg. We can let our hand come down onto our breastbone. So maybe it's quite helpful to just settle here for a couple of breaths. Let the knee drop towards the floor, the bent knee. And then it's that little exploration. Where do we go to if we reach our arm forwards and our leg back? And it might be that our body tips forwards. It might be that our pelvis tilts towards the raised leg side. As long as it feels comfortable in your body. I mean, it might feel a bit challenging, but as long as it doesn't feel painful. Again, if you have a little wobble and come out, you can always come back and try going somewhere slightly different if you want to. So you might stay a little bit more upright. You might tilt a little bit further forwards. You might really draw that foot back away from the bottom. Good. When you've done that on both sides, do you come down and just let yourself fold forwards into a forward bend? You rest your elbows on your thighs. And if it would benefit your lower back, you could go on into a squat. So I'm just going to give that as an option. Elaine, don't do that because I know that puts pressure through your knees. So just stay in your forward bend. Good. Very nice. Lovely. And then sinking into your heels, or if you're in a squat, very nice to see. Which one's it's Zelda? It's not Zelda, it's the other one, isn't it? Whose name I've forgotten. You'll have to tell me at the end. So yes, if you're in a squat, Gemma will probably know. Pippin. So there you go. See, this is the sad state of things. So do roll up your forward bend. The sad state of things, I have to rely on my 14-year-old because my memory is so bad. Thank goodness I can do that. So coming back up into standing, we're going to do one more, I suppose, little, I suppose, mini sequence. I'm hoping the light will flick on here and I'll get a bit brighter. So I'd just like you now to start with your feet side by side and a little distance between them, but have enough space on your mat because we're going to step forwards with one foot. So probably the first foot that you balanced on, you want to have as your front foot. So you're not about to stand on the foot you just balanced on. And do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. So how does it feel to shift your weight into your front foot, come up onto the ball of your back foot, shift your weight into your back foot, come onto your front heel. And then from here, you're going to settle down with both feet on the floor and you're going to bend your front knee. Keep the back leg straight, but for the moment, bring your hands into prayer pose at your heart. And I'm resting my thumbs on my breastbone, really to keep my hands out of the way. One less thing to worry about. And from here, we're going to shift our weight into our bent front leg and bend the back knee. So we come into this sort of exaggerated runner position. And then from here, we start to sink into the standing leg heel. So the standing knee straightens but doesn't lock. And we reach back behind us with the raised leg. So both legs are lengthening out and we're tipping forwards. We're seeing how it feels to have a breath or two here. Very nice. Really reaching into that back heel. Lovely. Beautiful. Yeah, really great. Well done. And again, Linda, it might be that you need to stay in the upright. It may, you know, it might be better for you not to, go too far in this one. Good. When you come back down, I'd like you to try and come back to your starting point. So with the foot you just balanced on is stepped forwards. The other foot's back behind you. We're going to bend the front knee and fold down over that front leg that we just balanced on. So it might be that you stay resting on the front thigh, the bent front knee, or it might be that you release your arms and your head down to the floor. And really give away your head and your arms if you're doing this. Keep your back heel anchored into the ground as much as you can. So the back leg is straight, the front knee is bent. We're resting our weight down through our front thigh. And then come back up, sinking into your back heel. Might be that you need to walk your hands up, Linda, up your front leg. Good. Have a little shake out. Oh, look, things have brightened up slightly in my screen. So come back, feet side by side, step the other foot forwards. Come back to this toing and froing, shifting our weight forwards and back, into the front foot, up onto the back toes, into the back foot, onto the front heel. Just to help us settle down into our feet. And then eventually, both feet on the floor, bending the front knee, bringing the hands into prayer pose at the heart. So remember, thumbs, I think thumbs resting on the breastbone. You don't have to. Try a bit more steady. And then from here again, we're going to shift our weight into our front leg, that bent front knee, bend the back knee, this sort of funny, exaggerated running position, and then start to reach back with your raised heel. Start to sink into your standing heel, so that knee straightens. So both knees straighten, but don't knock. Tipping forwards. See if you can find a place where you can have a breath or two, or even three. Very nice. Good. Trying to sense if you're balancing quite easily. One looks wonderful that you've got this long line from your back heel through to the crown of your head. Amazing, well done, well done. When you come down again, the same forward bend with the foot that you just balanced on, stepped forwards, that knee bent, folding down over that front leg. Letting your head go, letting your arms go. Keep it really rooted into your back heel. That's nice. Bend the front knee. Good. Good, good, good. Very nice. Have another couple of breaths there. And then sinking into your back heel. Rolling up into standing. Good. Have a little shake out. So from the back of your mat, we're going to come down one last time through forward bend, dog pose into child pose. And we'll just, I think actually we might do these with our buzzing breath. So we're thinking it's sort of about the breathing now as well as the movement. So in standing at the back of your mat, you're going to have a cycle of buzzing breath. Your arms could be by your sides or your hands could be in prayer pose, whatever you prefer. So let the breath come in. At the end of your in-out breath, you can let a breath come in. Next exhalation, you could take your arms up. And then with a buzzing breath, down into your forward bend. And then walking your hands on into dog pose from your forward bend. Once you arrive in your dog pose, we'll have a cycle of buzzing breath in dog. So let your breath come in. And then folding down into child pose, or kneeling if you prefer, for one last cycle of buzzing breath. So from child pose or kneeling, you're going to slither forwards onto your belly. I'm just going to briefly revisit a couple of things that we did right at the start on our belly. So settle down on your belly. So again, it could be with your one hand on top of the other and your cheek resting on the top of your hands. And the first thing you're going to do is give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. And then you're going to do the one where you bend your knees. Take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling and tilting your feet to the right and to the left. And obviously don't do that one if it doesn't feel so good for your lower back. Just see how it feels. And it might feel different than earlier, so it's always worth giving these things a go. So a couple more times, let the feet tilt to the right and to the left. And then bring your lower legs to rest on the floor. Just feel a cycle of breath move through you here. Feel your breath come in, feel your breath leave you. And then slide your hands forward, so like we did at the beginning of class. So your forehead can come onto the floor and your arms are in this big circle either side of your head. And again, just as we did earlier, you're going to be lifting your head as you exhale. So let a breath come in. And as you exhale, sinking down into your forearms and your elbows, lifting your head. And then coming back down. And do this 3 times. And again, if you like, on the third one, you could stay supporting your head for a cycle of breath. And when you've done that 3 times, it would be very pleased to hear, you're going to then roll over onto your backs. And yes, just arrive on your back. And as I usually say, I've written here, like, do your own thing. I think I might be slightly over ambitious about things I've got listed for you to do. So, but it's really important when you arrive on your back for you to have this chance to do what you would like to do. Yes, putting on warm things is good. So arrive on your back. Do whatever your body feels it would like. Yes, and so what I was going to suggest, if you've done your own thing, or if you, sometimes it's just nice to be told. I was going to say a bit of feet, knees bent, feet standing on the floor, maybe a few times tilting your knees to the right and to the left. And then come back to the revisiting tilting your pelvis. Yes, so when you tilted so you're not letting your knees tilt, your feet are settled on the floor, you're tilting your pelvis towards your face and away from your face. And When you've done that a few times, you can take it on into a couple of bridge poses. I just want you to see, I'd like you to see how bridge pose feels. And then we're going to just do a little bridge pose variation and then come back to it. So when you've done a couple of bridge poses, you're going to keep your right knee bent and your right foot standing on the floor, and you're going to lengthen out your left leg. And then I'm sure you will know what you're going to do now. You're going to start that foot pressing movement where you press into your right foot and you let your pelvis tilt over towards the left. And you're sending your right knee forwards over your right foot. So I often think about this as being sort of half bridge pose. So we're doing exactly the same movement as we do in bridge pose with the leg. But the pelvis lifts in this sort of slanty way because it's only the right side of the pelvis lifting. The pelvis is tilting to the left. So do that maybe once or twice more. That's it. Really think about your knee moving forwards over your foot rather than your knee wandering. It's probably likely to wander to the left if it's going to wander anywhere. And then you can add in the variation of this that I really, really like, which is where you're going to cross your arms over your chest with your right arm on top. So this can feel really nice. And so as you press into your right foot and the right side of your pelvis comes off the floor, you roll across your upper back. So you roll towards the back of your left shoulder and you let your head roll to the left. That's it, exactly. And your right fingertips, I can see very well there, Sheila, your right fingertips reach out on the floor away from your body. That's it, good. Very nice. And so do this maybe sort of 2, 3 times, 4 times on this side. And then before we move on to side 2, just give yourself a quiet breath with perhaps with both legs long or both knees bent. And then we'll swap over and we'll do these movements on the other side. So that's it. You're going to bend your left knee and lengthen your right leg out on the floor. And start with your arms resting down on the floor beside you. So maybe sort of 2 or 3 times, pressing down into your left foot, letting the left side of your pelvis come away from the floor, letting your pelvis tilt to the right. So Linda, I think these ones can be really helpful if we keep them small. And yeah, for releasing tension around the lower back. So yeah, sort of 2, 3 times with the arms resting by the sides. And then whenever you want to, you can cross your arms over your chest, your left arm on top this time. And then you're sinking, pressing into your left foot, letting yourself roll across your upper back towards the back of your right shoulder. Letting your head roll to the right, sliding your left fingertips out on the floor, away from you. Very nice. And just feel that this can be a really nice massage for between the shoulder blades. That's it. That's nice, Aditi. So it's particularly if you know that you can get a bit tight between the shoulder blades, this is such a nice opportunity to, to release a bit of tension there. You can do this once more, maybe release your arms. Again, let a breath come in. Do the same thing with both legs bent or both legs long. Both knees bent, both legs long. And finally, you could then revisit bridge pose a couple of times if you like. So it's quite, when I was doing this yesterday, I was quite surprised. I don't never find bridge pose that easy. I was quite surprised coming back to bridge of how much more movement I felt in my upper spine between my shoulder blades when I came into bridge. So then, yeah, it's very nice. And actually, the feet look really nicely planted there, Elaine. And she look at the feet that I can see. Good. So yes, if you like, sort of a couple of times rolling up and down into bridge, very nice. And yeah, really well planted feet there, Sheila. Exactly. And if you've done a couple of bridges, you might like to then fold your knees into your chest. Hug your knees in towards you. You don't have to do that. You might prefer to lengthen your legs out on the floor. Yes, and if you folded your knees into your chest, you want to take your legs up to the ceiling, give them a shake out, do so. And then we will finish lying. I was going to say quietly, but I think we'll have 3 cycles of buzzing breath. And Rosie's very lucky to have a cat sitting on her to keep her warm. There's nothing better. But in the absence of a cat to sit on you, then maybe a blanket. So settling down, your hands can rest on the front of your body or down by your sides. And once we're all settled, we'll have 3 cycles of buzzing breath. And just using our buzzing breath as another opportunity to help sort of undo these layers of tension that we gather in our daily lives. So when you're ready, letting a breath come in. We'll let another breath come in and buzz again on an exhalation. And one last time. And then finally, just resting with your natural breath. So in a moment, in a minute or so, I shall ring the singing bowl. But just before I do so, see how it feels to one last time bring your awareness to the flow of your natural breath. Feeling the in-breath and the out-breath moving through you. So take your time. Thank you very much, everyone. I was going to say, I think it's been like a record morning for pet spotting. So I've seen both of Linda's cats, both of Rosie's cats, and Chili. So I'm a bit disappointed I haven't seen Jessie. So